Cam from Cam's Leather Seats here to show you how you can install one of our leather trim kits, which you can purchase from our eBay store, onto a Ford Ranger front seat. In any of our Ranger kits, you will receive one passenger cushion cover, one passenger backrest cover, headrest for the passenger side, headrest for the driver's side, driver's backrest, driver's cushion, 3 rear headrests, a rear armrest, rear backrest cover, and a rear cushion cover. All of the covers will come with factory style attachments so that you can basically remove your cloth cover and reattach the new leather cover in exactly the same way. It has exactly the same J retainer plastics on the sides, and it has these listing parts to clip down to the actual seat. This specific kit we have made to replace the cloth covers in a Wildtrak. We've had many customers tell us that they don't like the factory OEM orange cloth all through the middle of the seats, and the portion of leather that they get is about this much. So we designed this kit as a classier option. It still retains orange stitching. I'll show you here. But we've minimised the orange. The reason we've kept the orange is because the dashboard, the console lid, the steering wheel, the door trim insert, armrests, all have orange stitching also, so you would have to replace all of those parts also if you wanted to get rid of it all. This way we're still tying everything in with the rest of the interior. I'll show you also up close the Wildtrak logo. We've done in black there. It's a subtle thing, but classy. The styling wise, we've kept all the same styling cues as the Wildtrak. So it has these dome sections. All of these shapes here are the same. All of this is the same. It's just a black leather version with a little bit of orange stitch, contrasting stitch to tie in with everything else. We can also do custom orders with any combination of colour of leather. We have over 70 colours to choose from, and you can have any colour stitching. This can be an XLT logo, because these covers, even with all this Wildtrak styling, will fit onto XLT or base model seats also. Okay, let's get into the install. So we've got our Ranger passenger front seat here. Just to run you through removing the seat from the car, it's pretty straightforward, but I'll just quickly do that. There are 4 bolts, off the top of my head 14mm, and then there are a few wiring harness plugs, which are pretty straightforward to get to, and you will need something like a pointy screwdriver or skewer or something like that to just push aside the little clip so that they will come out. I would also recommend that you disconnect the battery before removing all the seats from the car, and do not put the key back in the ignition and turn the ignition while the seats are out of the car. Look, the worst thing that could happen is really just that you will get an airbag warning light come up on your dash, and you'll have to go to a mechanic to get it removed. But if you just follow those steps, disconnect the battery, remove the seats, don't put the key in the ignition, and only do that after you've fully installed everything, then you shouldn't have a problem. So, tools that you'll need. Let's have a look. So you'll need a few screwdrivers. You may need something like this that we talked about. Ratchet and sockets, pretty straightforward. A pair of side cutters. Pliers may do the job, but side cutters, they're the pointy type that cut. A pair of scissors, don't have to be proper trimming scissors, your household scissors will be fine for this job. And the one tool that you may not have around the house, probably won't, is a pair of C-clip or hog ring pliers. This is a C-clip or hog ring, and basically what they do is this. They are what will hold these areas down to the seat properly. It means that the cover doesn't move around and isn't baggy. So the first step is to remove the headrest. Now to do that, I'll turn this around. Now on one side we have a push button that's pretty obvious as to what it does, and that will release this side. However, we need to release this side also, and to do that we need to use a small screwdriver or anything really that's pretty small to get to a very small button here on this side. Push both at the same time and remove the headrest. Okay, next step, we will remove the side plastics. Now, just at this point, I'll mention that it's a really good idea to have some foam or a blanket or something down on the workbench that you're working on. I mean, I've just put that down on the side plastic. It's okay to do that as long as you've got something protected. Last thing you would want is for that plastic, especially that outer one, to get any scratches on. Okay, so first, to remove the side plastics, there are 2 screws at the back. Once you've removed those screws, the inner side plastic can be removed by pulling up the back part and then pulling the plastic forward. Once you've pulled it forward, you're then able to just push the seatbelt aside a little and it comes out. Here we can see that a prong was going in there, and that's why we needed to pull forward. Okay, next, flip the seat over. And we can look at removing the outer side plastic. First step is to get into here, so you can see. Now this is the recliner handle. Now this plastic here needs to come off because there's a bolt under here. So with a small skewer tool or a very small flat blade screwdriver, you can get into just here. There's a mark there, you can see where you're supposed to get into there, and it'll just pop straight off. Now you can see the 10mm bolt that needs to be removed. And the handle will pop straight off. Keep your parts together where it makes sense. Now we need to remove this. Again, it pulls forward, however you need to just lift the plastic at the back, A, to get past the metal here so it doesn't scratch on that, and B, to get past the recliner part there. So just pull up and pull the whole plastic forward. Here you can see that at the front here it has two prongs that go in here, and it also has one that goes in here, and that's why we needed to pull the whole thing forward. This also hooks in up the top as well. So you just need to pull this a little bit aside, make sure that it clears the recliner thing here as well, and pull forward. Now what I like to do next is remove the cushion pad and cover. So from under the seat we can now see plastic retainers on the sides that we weren't able to access because of the side plastics, and of course we can pretty easily get to some plastic retainers under here as well. So first I'm going to remove these little J retainers on an elastic that just hold this little carpet flap here. I'm going to get my side cutters and remove these C-clips or hog rings. Now you can cut them all. I prefer to twist them. It's a bit of an action to get used to, but if you twist them, you don't have, rather than cutting them, you don't have little bits of C-clips lying around everywhere that you've cut. The worst thing, there could be that you have a little bit sitting on your bench there, and you could turn your seat upside down with your new leather covers on it and scratch your new leather. So I like to put them straight into my hand, twist them off, and put them straight into my hand. Next we'll remove the side plastic retainers. Now there's no one particular exact way of doing this. Everybody has different ways. One way could be to get a flat blade screwdriver in something like this and pull up. That will get it off. I use my hands mostly and just get in there and pull it up. There's a large one at the front there. And then the last two on the other side. Just before I do the last one, I'll show you another way. If you're having trouble getting them off like that, sometimes it helps to put some pressure downward on the foam. So it helps to have it upright like this, and then you can pull downward and push and depress the foam at the same time. So there's two ways we can go about the next step, because now we're ready to remove this. However, it has a sensor pad for the seat belt inside this cushion, and so it's connected. We can go ahead and this is one option. We can go ahead and trace that wire back through here, cut these the cable ties essentially, pull this out of here, cut that and replace it with a cable tie, and then pull the wire out of the plug out of the harness. However, there's another option, and that is to simply do the job up here. So let's do that. Just peel back the cloth cover, and then we want to get to all the C-clips hiding inside there. So there's the listing retainer, and then the foam has a wire as part of the foam when it's injection molded. So basically the next step is to go ahead and remove all of those C-clips, and I'll fast forward this bit. Now the cushion cloth cover is removed, we can put that aside. Let's just sit this foam roughly back in place. Now let's work on getting this cover off. Turn it around and there is a plastic couple of plastic retainers on the bottom that hook in like this, that you need to get apart. So I like to put the handle back on just so that we can push that forward. That way we can access it better. I might turn this on its side so that you might be able to see. Now I'm just doing that with my fingers. Been doing this 20 years, so I'm kind of used to it. However, you could definitely do it with a flat blade screwdriver or something like that to help pry that apart. That's that. The foam is in a little bit of a pocket there, so we just get that out of there without tearing the foam. The next step is to we could remove this entire wiring harness for the airbag from the bottom of the seat, and I usually would do that. I just feel though that that's one extra step that a novice may not want to tackle. So I've just cut the cloth on this cloth cover in order to be able to remove this cover just in that little area there. It would never ever be seen if you wanted to reuse this cover or whatever. Now, get it back upright and get the recliner back into the upright position. Now we can begin to start peeling up the cloth cover. Now if you wanted to make this really easy for yourself and you don't care about your old covers, you could cut right through it, but I wouldn't recommend doing that. But you could go and unpick the blind seam here, back sewn seam, because that can easily be re-sewn back together and it's good as new. I'll just do it without doing that because I don't want to ruin it in any way. Now, the next thing is a wire that clips down to another wire in the foam. There it is there. So there's two of those. They go right up these sides here. By the way, the driver's side won't have this sensor because it doesn't need it. Which means you'll be able to remove this pad and put it aside while you're working on the backrest. Now we've got some listings connected with C-clips at the back here. I'll just flip that forward again so you can see. They're in here. That means we can get it up a bit further, and then there's two more. And two more. Here, that's connected to the middle frame. You just need to unclip there. So that's a J retainer, similar to the one on the bottom, and it's just connected to this steel lip of the frame there. Now we need to get back to the front side one more time to get to a couple more listings. Remove 3 C-clips. These wires will now be able to pull out of the cover. And start pulling the cover right over the top. Just pull it around the headrest posts. Some people like to take the headrest posts out. Personally, I leave them in. Just a couple more, 2 C-clips on each side. And that's it, removed. Okay, next step is steaming. Now this is not an essential step. These foams are in pretty good condition, they're not that old. However, the old covers did, squish this foam a little bit, and so steaming helps to bring the foams back to their original shape, and the bigger and puffier they are, the better those covers are going to fit. However, on a newish car like this, it's not. We're talking about millimeters difference. So if you have access to something like a steamer, something like this, then give this a go. You could sit it over a kettle. That takes a long, long time though. You could also wet the foams and then put them out in the sun. That does the same sort of thing. Okay, we'll let that dry and then we'll be ready to install. So let's start with the backrest. Now one thing to note on these backrests is that we have added a zip in order to make it easier to install. It just goes here. A lot of cars OEM have zips there anyway. You hardly notice it, and it makes the installation a lot easier. So we're going to start with the turning it inside out. And then we're going to start by clipping down these listings here, and then working the top around and working our way down. So I'll lay it on its back to get started on that. So I'm lining up the middle listing, although I'm not clipping that down right now, because if I do, it'll make it difficult to get the top over. So all I want to do at this stage is roughly line that up, and then get a few C-clips on these side listings at the top here. One, two. Now that those 4 C-clips are in, let's work on the top. Get it upright again. And we'll try and get our seams sitting in the correct places. You can see the grooves where they should go. And we'll get one corner over a little bit. Get that in the groove, and then get this corner over a bit also. All the while we need to be extremely careful not to tear anything. So as you're doing things, try and hold certain parts together. Okay, the next step is to get this retainer into place. So we clip that onto the frame. Check that it's central. That's what holds that in there nicely. Put it on its back again. Get some C-clips. Peel this back a little bit. And now we can get C-clips onto that retainer there. Then we get our wires. Remember which end is which. This end is the bottom end. This is the top end. So we insert them. Then you need to hook them in at the top. So there's a wire there you'll see, and you basically just need to get the top end of that definitely hooked in at the top. That's it. Now, being careful that they don't unhook themselves, we get this all down this way. Now, as we are putting this down, it's easiest to, while we're doing this, get the seams sitting in the right place. What do I mean? I mean, you could just pull this over and then the seam would be sitting over here where it shouldn't be. What I like to do is make the seam sit in place as I'm pulling it down. That way the seam is in the correct place to begin with, and there's less work in moving things around later to make it look right. Same with the other side. Alright, so we've got that all sitting pretty good there now. Now we need to get those two wires hooked in properly at the bottom again. And then again, pull that back down properly. Now, that's got the face almost all correctly connected in. Now, we will just get this retainer through to the back so that we can work on it in a moment. Just pull the cushion pad forward to make this easier. There. Put that back down. Turn this back around. And now we can finish off the back before we do the bottom. So I'll just hit the recliner again. Get some C-clips ready. It's always a good idea to always have a C-clip ready to go in here. That way, if you've set something up and you're ready to clip it, you go and it's there ready to go. Now, this is a little bit fiddly, but just remember that if you don't clamp these too tight, and they can slide, alright? So the positioning is not 100% essential. Needs to be close. Now, we could zip up the sides now and then try and get the plastic retainers clipped up at the bottom. However, it is easier to clip up the retainers first and then do the zips. Now this can be a little bit of a workout for the hands. Just remember, it's mostly about getting things worked down and into position first, stretching them down into the correct place first, and then the effort to get it clipped in will be minimal. Now that we've clipped that in, we can work on the zips. Now, they are strong zips, but you need to be careful. Always make sure you've got the seams almost entirely pulled together before starting to zip. Now the first side's going to be a little easier than the second side. And also try and get the excess a little out of the way. You can use a pair of pliers or something to help with this step, if you need to. We'll just tuck that up and out of the way. And tuck that up and out of the way. Now, this is where we're up to. So, we've barely moved and fiddled and played with anything at all, and already that's looking pretty good. Now let's work on the cushion. We will play around with that and make that look a whole lot better than that before we're done. Now we turn our cushion cover inside out, place it. Now we're going to want to work with our middle listing first. What I like to do is line that up, make sure you've got it even side to side, and then we can put our centre one in. And our sides. Then we need to work our front corners around. Again, it's best to try and get the seams sitting where they should be. This seam should be on this edge, rather than trying to fix things later. The way you get it looking good right from the start. Get these back corners in the correct position. Then we can push the back through. Now, it's time to get the side and front retainers into place. Just make sure that the foam is definitely in the correct position before we get started. Now these retainers need to turn over back on themselves. This is a little tricky, this part. So you need to hear a click, and that's how you know that it's in. That's in solidly. Move around to here. Turn these plastics right back on themselves. Push the foam up and out of the way a bit so that it doesn't interfere with the clip with the J retainer going in place properly. We heard a click. Click. Good. Now we need to C-clip up the back part. That's just the same as how we pulled it apart. Just clip it back to where the cloth one was. 4 on that back part there, but don't forget these little tabs as well on the sides. Then this little back flap originally was in carpet, as you would recall, but now it's in leather. Clip these J retainers on. Doesn't matter where, as long as this panel ends up nice and taut. There we have the initial fitted covers. They still need a bit of work. I'll walk you through all of that now. Okay, so now we're going to play with and manipulate the leather a little bit to get it all just sitting in the correct spot, which will help with a few of the wrinkles and creases that we have. Some of the wrinkles and creases are simply from the parts being folded up in a box on their way to you. And those little creases will go, pretty quickly. A little bit of sunshine on a couple of warm days, and those little creases will go. Which ones am I talking about? Yeah, little ones here. I don't know if you can see that. I'm not really talking about these larger ones and a bit of this bagginess here. We're going to work that out and play with that to get that right. So, major thing I'm seeing is a few creases here in the insert, and what I think I can do to fix that is to bring this part down. It feels like this is tight here, but this is not down into the correct position. I think that'll A, help with some of this here, and B, it'll make that straighten up. So, just trying to move the leather on the foam. Remove jewellery again. Now you can see that that's almost gone the opposite way now. But once we move some of this down as well, that'll help. And this is now filled out properly. We still have a few little creases here and there that we can work out with a little bit of heat or a little bit of sunshine. Okay, now that we've played around with that to get that looking as best it can, well, in a sense of making sure everything's in the correct position. This insert part here looks a lot better. We still have a little bit of wrinkling here, which we'll fix with a bit of heat, which I'll show you. Next, what I want to do is check that the headrest points are in the correct point, and then cut them and get that around. So we want to play with this seam next to make it sit right and look good. So to turn seams, I'm looking at this here and I don't really like the look of it. What I want to do is turn the seam. So I'm picking up the leather, pulling it away from the foam so that I'm able to turn it. That there looks a lot better. So I'm going to play with this whole seam till I'm happy with how it's sitting and looking. Now let's check the headrest holes. Now they're pretty spot on to in the right position. They're marked there but not cut. Just going to move it over this way a little bit, and now I'm happy and ready to cut them. By the way, now you can see the face of the cushion, and that it's all fitting quite well. A few little wrinkles here. That always happens because the thing was inside out, so it's just a little creased up from being in a box, basically, and so it will. These little creases will come out in no time. Now, with your scissors, start by finding the hole in the centre of the headrest post. And we're going to poke in there. Now, we want to cut a hole, obviously not too big. Remember, you can always cut more, you can't cut less. And we don't want to be too small either though, when we actually go to pull it around, because if it is too small, then there's a chance that we could tear the leather, and then we would see the tear. So what I've got there is a hole that is about 5 mil larger than the actual inner hole. And to be safe, I'm going to go just a touch more than that. remember, you can always cut more. And we just get one side over and then gently get the other two corners around. That's it, do the same. Okay, now while we've got it sitting like that, might be a good way to show you how to put a bit of heat into the thing. So there's three options, for heating, in order to just finish off a few of the wrinkles. One, and this is the one I would recommend, if you've got a sunny day. If you don't, you may have to leave it for a while, or resort to one of the other two options. So, my number one recommended option for someone who hasn't used a heat gun or a steamer before would be to put them out in the sun. Put the seats, once installed, out in the sun for as long as possible, for half a day, something like that. Guarantee that little bits and pieces from them being folded up on themselves will come out. Assuming all is fitted correctly. You need to work things into the correct position and all that sort of thing as well. But what I'm going to do to speed up the process and to show you that this comes out great after a little bit of heat, I'm going to first do a bit of steaming and then do a bit of heat gun to show you how that works. So now that we've done our initial fitment, it's time to play around with it a little in order to get it looking better. Obviously we've got a few wrinkles here, here, here and here. So the safest way to remove wrinkles for a novice is to set it out in the sun. Hopefully it's summertime. We're in Melbourne, so that doesn't happen that often. But what we do as professionals is use either a heat gun or a steamer. Heat guns are faster, but potentially harsher way to go. Steam is a little safer. So let's have a look at doing both of those options. The steam will shrink the leather a little, not much. It'll also get in through the seams, so try and put it down into the seams, and that will get in behind the leather and also help to get into the foam and make the foam expand a little to fill it out. So always keep it moving and work over the entire panel, not just the little area that you think needs it or has the problem area. So that's steaming, and it's done a lot, but it's not 100% exactly how I would finish it off, but very good. Again, you can just put this out in the sun and all of these problems will fix themselves. However, it's not a sunny day today. So we're also going to use a little bit of heat just to tidy up a few little areas. Always keep the heat gun moving. I've been doing this for a long time, and so if I'm moving quite slow, it's because I know what I'm doing. But to be safe, do this. Work over the entire panel. Always watch the leather intently to ensure nothing is happening to the leather, and always keep moving. The last thing to do is the headrest. To do that, we need to get this plastic retainer apart. Again, you could do that with a flat blade screwdriver or something to help. And then you could cut up the side. I'm going to do that just for the ease of it. Makes it a lot easier to get it off. And now we get our new cover. Now, fitting headrests is one of the trickier bits of upholstery, auto upholstery. As you know, that's quite small and this is quite big, and that all needs to get through there. But we have some tricks. So one option is to fit this, basically muscle it on. And when I say that, I don't mean stretching this over that, it will tear. I mean squishing this foam to fit inside that hole. That is one way. It's tricky. If you are going to do that way, you would turn the cover entirely inside out. Get it all absolutely inside out. And then I would turn in right way the top third or so. Then get that sitting right, and then slowly work the cover down. Right, that's where we start to get into trouble. Then to finish this off, you need to squish the foam and start bringing it down, right, without tearing the cover. We're going to try a different method today though, which involves vacuum. So there's some fancy tools on the market. This one essentially you plug into your compressor and forces air out this way, sucking air in that way. You put it on the headrest post and put a bag around the headrest. But these Ranger headrest posts are curved, and so this doesn't fit. And B, you can use a household vacuum instead. So let's put this cover, this is just a freezer bag from the supermarket. Let's put this on the headrest. It's a little tight. So the freezer bag will A, help it to be a little slipperier, and B, allow us to close up this gap with a vacuum, and we should be able to squeeze that headrest to be a lot smaller, and then get the cover on quite easily. Now we just move the headrest around, getting the seams sitting where they should, moving it down and around till it looks how it should. We'll just tear away any excess of this bag, this old bag. Then we will get everything sitting correctly in place. Now the last fiddly bit is getting this retainer turned and stuffed inside this J retainer so that it clicks in. There we go. So all we need to do now really is install the headrest. You could leave that off and do that in the car to make it a bit easier so that you don't have as much height, but the Ranger door is quite tall, so that's not really an issue. Now the last thing is reattaching our side plastics. Now the only reason I didn't do that before the heating and whatever process is I didn't want to heat up the plastics and make them shiny or something like that, and also, you know, if we're still moving the seat around, why have them on there and possibly scratch them? So let's just put the plastics on. As we mentioned earlier, got a prong in here and get this part hooked in over here. Don't forget the screws at the back. And as we mentioned before also, one prong in here, two at the front, go here and here, and we need to hook this over the top as well. We're going to need to bend this apart a little bit to get it around the back also. Bit fiddly, but a little patience and can be done. And finally, we put the recliner handle back on. .10mm bolt. And the plastic. And there we have our finished seat. We'll do a little close-up walk around of the seat now. So now obviously this is only one seat, however the driver's seat is almost identical. The only real differences are that the driver's seat doesn't have the sensor pad for the seatbelt, which means you're able to remove the foam pad easily and work on it separately. And the driver's side has a height adjuster handle here, which if you lift it up, you'll see a little plastic prong that you just need to pry apart a tiny bit with a little flat blade screwdriver, and then that will come straight off. Other than that, the driver's seat is exactly the same as this, so same process. The rear seats are quite basic compared to this. They have some zips on the sides, similar to this. They have listings that are clipped down into place. That's all very straightforward. And they have carpet on the bottom of the cushion and carpet on the back of the backrest with plastic retainers similar to the bottom of the backrest here. Which can be a bit of a stretch, a little bit of a workout for the hands, and you may need 2 people to tackle that. But other than that, they're pretty straightforward. So that's it. That's been how to install our Ranger kits. If you have any questions at all, feel free. Please visit our website www.leatherseats.com.au. And if you're interested in one of these kits, go to our eBay store, link is below, and you can also call us anytime on 0405 818 360. See you next time.